Have you ever wondered why some people seem so put together on the surface, yet struggle with hidden battles that nobody else can see? If you're an INFJ or know someone who is, you're about to discover the secret weaknesses that this personality type simply can't keep hidden, no matter how hard they try. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the mysterious world of INFJs, those rare individuals who make up less than 2% of the population. While INFJs are known for their incredible empathy, intuition, and ability to understand others, they've got some hidden struggles that tend to surface whether they like it or not. Now, before we jump in, I want to make something clear. We're not here to bash INFJs or make anyone feel bad about themselves. Instead, we're exploring these tendencies so that INFJs can better understand themselves, and so the rest of us can better support the INFJs in our lives. Think of this as a roadmap for self-awareness and personal growth. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's uncover these 8 secret weaknesses that INFJs just can't seem to keep under wraps. 1. The people-pleasing trap that never ends. Let's start with something that hits close to home for most INFJs, their desperate need to make everyone happy. Now, you might be thinking, what's wrong with wanting people to be happy? Well, here's the thing, INFJs take this to an extreme that's honestly exhausting to watch. Picture this. Sarah, an INFJ, agrees to work overtime even though she's already burned out because she doesn't want to disappoint her boss. Then she promises to help her friend move apartments on the weekend, even though that's her only day off. Oh, and she can't say no to her neighbor who needs someone to watch their dog. Sound familiar? This people-pleasing behavior stems from the INFJ's deep fear of conflict and their overwhelming desire to maintain harmony. They'd rather sacrifice their own well-being than risk upsetting someone else. It's like they've got this internal alarm system that goes off whenever they think someone might be disappointed in them. The problem is, this weakness is written all over their face. You can literally see the stress building up as they take on more and more responsibilities. Their shoulders get tense, they start speaking faster, and there's this look in their eyes that screams, "I'm drowning, but I can't stop saying yes." What makes this even more heartbreaking is that INFJs often don't realize they're doing it. They genuinely believe that everyone else's needs come before their own. They'll bend over backwards to accommodate others, even when it means breaking themselves in the process. The worst part? People start to take advantage of this weakness. Once someone figures out that an INFJ will always say yes, they keep coming back for more. It's like the INFJ becomes the go-to person for every favor, every crisis, and every inconvenience. And because INFJs are so intuitive, they can sense when someone's about to ask them for something, which makes them feel even more trapped. 2. Perfectionism that paralyzes progress. Here's another weakness that INFJs wear like a neon sign: their crippling perfectionism. Now, we're not talking about the healthy kind of perfectionism that drives someone to do their best work. No, this is the kind that stops INFJs from even starting projects because they're terrified they won't be perfect. I've seen INFJs spend hours crafting a single email because they're worried about how every word will be interpreted. They'll rewrite the same paragraph 15 times, change the font 3 times, and then still feel anxious about hitting send. It's painful to watch, honestly. This perfectionism shows up everywhere in their lives. They'll avoid applying for jobs they're qualified for because their resume isn't perfect enough. They won't share their creative work because it doesn't meet their impossible standards. They'll even avoid social situations because they're worried they won't say the right thing at the right time. The irony is that INFJs are incredibly talented and capable people. They've got this amazing ability to see the big picture and understand complex situations. But their perfectionism convinces them that anything less than flawless is failure. So instead of creating something good that could become great, they create nothing at all. You can spot this weakness from a mile away. INFJs will make excuses for why they haven't finished projects, why they haven't pursued opportunities, or why they haven't shared their ideas. They'll say things like, "I'm still working on it," or "It's not ready yet," or "Maybe next time." Meanwhile, months or even years go by and they're still stuck in the same place. What's really tragic is that this perfectionism often stems from deep-seated fears of judgment and rejection. INFJs are so worried about being criticized or not being good enough that they'd rather not try than risk failing. It's a self-protecting mechanism that actually ends up holding them back from reaching their full potential. 3. Emotional overwhelm that's impossible to hide. If you've ever been around an INFJ during an emotional crisis, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These people feel everything, and I mean everything, at an intensity that's honestly overwhelming to witness. They're like emotional sponges, soaking up not just their own feelings but everyone else's too. Here's what happens. An INFJ walks into a room where there's been an argument, and even though they weren't involved, they can feel the tension in the air. Their mood immediately shifts. They start feeling anxious, sad, or angry, and they can't shake it off. It's like they've absorbed everyone else's emotional residue. This emotional overwhelm manifests in ways that are impossible to miss. Their voices get shaky when they're trying to explain something that matters to them. They'll tear up during movies, commercials, or even just talking about their day. They might suddenly need to excuse themselves from social situations because the emotional energy has become too much to handle. The thing is, INFJs often don't understand why they're feeling so intensely. They'll say things like, "I don't know why I'm so upset about this," or "I shouldn't be this emotional." But here's the truth, they can't help it. Their brains are literally wired to process emotions more deeply than most people. This weakness becomes especially obvious when INFJs are trying to make decisions. They'll get so caught up in considering how their choice might affect everyone involved that they become paralyzed. They'll worry about hurting someone's feelings, disappointing someone, or causing conflict. Meanwhile, their stress levels are through the roof and everyone around them can see it. What makes this even harder is that INFJs often feel like they need to be the strong ones, the ones who help others with their problems. So when they're struggling with emotional overwhelm, they feel guilty about it. They think they should be able to handle it better, which just adds more emotional weight to an already heavy load. 4. The doormat syndrome they can't escape. This one's tough to talk about, but it needs to be said, INFJs have a really hard time standing up for themselves. It's like they've got this invisible sign on their forehead that says, "Please walk all over me, I won't complain." I've watched INFJs get interrupted in meetings and just quietly accept it. I've seen them get blamed for things that weren't their fault and apologize anyway. They'll let people cut in front of them in line, take credit for their work, or treat them disrespectfully, and they rarely speak up about it. This doormat behavior comes from their deep desire to avoid conflict, but it also stems from their tendency to doubt themselves. INFJs are constantly second-guessing their own reactions and wondering if they're being too sensitive or unreasonable. So instead of standing up for themselves, they convince themselves that maybe they deserve the poor treatment. The signs of this weakness are everywhere. You'll notice that INFJs often apologize for things that aren't their fault. They'll say sorry for asking questions, for having opinions, or even for existing in a space. They'll downplay their achievements and deflect compliments. When someone treats them poorly, they'll make excuses for that person's behavior instead of addressing the problem. What's really heartbreaking is that INFJs often don't realize how much they're diminishing themselves. They think they're being humble or considerate, but really they're teaching people that it's okay to disrespect them. And once that pattern gets established, it's incredibly hard to break. The worst part is that this weakness affects their relationships in major ways. People who genuinely care about them get frustrated watching them get walked all over. Meanwhile, people who don't have good intentions learn that they can take advantage of the INFJ without consequences. It creates this cycle where the INFJ ends up surrounded by people who don't treat them well, which reinforces their belief that they don't deserve better treatment. 5. Analysis paralysis that stops everything. Here's something that drives everyone crazy about INFJs, including the INFJs themselves. They think everything to death. Seriously, these people can take the simplest decision and turn it into a philosophical debate that lasts for hours. Want to see an INFJ's brain short circuit? Ask them to choose where they want to go for dinner. They'll start considering not just what they're in the mood for, but what everyone else might want, what the dietary restrictions are, what the atmosphere will be like, whether the location is convenient for everyone, what the cost implications are, and how this choice might affect future dinner decisions. By the time they've analyzed all the variables, everyone's already starving. This analysis paralysis shows up in every aspect of their lives. They'll research a simple purchase for weeks, reading every review and comparing every option. They'll agonize over career decisions for months, creating pro and con lists that are longer than most people's resumes. They'll even overthink casual conversations, wondering if they said the right thing or if they should have responded differently. You can spot this weakness immediately because INFJs will literally freeze when faced with decisions. They'll get this deer-in-the-headlights look, and you can practically see the wheels spinning in their heads. They'll ask for more time, more information, or more opinions from others. They'll change their minds multiple times, then change them back again. The problem is that all this analysis rarely leads to better decisions. In fact, it often leads to missed opportunities. While the INFJ is busy analyzing every possible outcome, other people are taking action and moving forward. The INFJ ends up stuck in their head while life passes them by. What's particularly frustrating is that INFJs usually have great intuition. Their gut instincts are often spot on, but they don't trust themselves enough to act on those instincts. Instead, they try to logic their way through everything, which goes against their natural strengths. It's like watching someone try to hammer a nail with a screwdriver. They've got the wrong tool for the job. 6. Conflict avoidance that creates more problems. If there's one thing that makes INFJs visibly uncomfortable, it's conflict. These people will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid any kind of confrontation, even when it means making their own lives significantly more difficult. Picture this scenario. An INFJ has a roommate who never does their share of the cleaning. Instead of having a direct conversation about it, the INFJ will start cleaning up after the roommate, hoping they'll get the hint. When that doesn't work, they'll leave passive-aggressive notes. When that fails too, they'll start avoiding common areas and looking for a new place to live. They'll literally uproot their entire life rather than have one uncomfortable conversation. This conflict avoidance is written all over their behavior. When tension starts building in a room, INFJs will immediately try to redirect the conversation or make jokes to lighten the mood. They'll agree with people they actually disagree with just to keep the peace. They'll bite their tongues when they have valid concerns or complaints. The irony is that this weakness often creates more conflict, not less. By avoiding direct communication, problems fester and grow. Misunderstandings multiply. Resentment builds on both sides. What could have been resolved with one honest conversation becomes a major issue that affects multiple relationships. You can see this pattern playing out in INFJ relationships all the time. They'll put up with behavior that bothers them until they suddenly can't take it anymore. Then they'll either explode in an uncharacteristic outburst or just quietly disappear from the relationship. Either way, the other person is left confused because the INFJ never communicated that there was a problem. This weakness is particularly obvious in professional settings. INFJs will accept unreasonable workloads, unclear expectations, or unfair treatment rather than speak up about it. They'll suffer in silence until they eventually burn out or quit. Their colleagues and managers often have no idea there was a problem because the INFJ never said anything. 7. Approval addiction that controls their choices. Here's a weakness that INFJs desperately try to hide but can't. They're absolutely addicted to approval. These people need validation like plants need sunlight, and when they don't get it, they start to wither. This approval addiction affects every decision they make. They'll choose careers based on what their parents think is respectable rather than what they're passionate about. They'll dress in ways that please others rather than expressing their own style. They'll even choose friends and romantic partners based partly on whether other people approve of them. The signs of this weakness are everywhere once you know what to look for. INFJs constantly seek reassurance about their choices. They'll ask the same question multiple times to different people, hoping to hear that they're making the right decision. They'll change their opinions based on the reactions they get from others. They'll downplay parts of themselves that they think might not be well received. What's really sad is that this approval addiction often leads INFJs to live lives that aren't authentic to who they really are. They become so focused on being what others want them to be that they lose touch with their own desires and values. They'll sacrifice their happiness for the sake of maintaining a positive image in other people's eyes. This weakness becomes especially obvious on social media. INFJs will spend way too much time crafting the perfect post, choosing the right filter, and writing captions that they think will get the most positive response. Then they'll obsessively check for likes and comments, using the response as a measure of their worth. The worst part is that no amount of approval ever seems to be enough. Even when INFJs get the validation they're seeking, it doesn't last. They need constant reassurance, constant praise, constant confirmation that they're okay. It's exhausting for them and for the people around them. 8. The martyr complex that drives everyone away. Last but definitely not least, we need to talk about the INFJ martyr complex. This is perhaps the most damaging weakness on our list because it affects every single relationship the INFJ has. Here's how it works. INFJs will sacrifice themselves for others, then feel resentful when their sacrifices aren't appreciated or reciprocated. They'll give and give and give, keeping track of everything they've done, often subconsciously, and then feel hurt when others don't do the same for them. The martyr complex shows up in statements like, "After everything I've done for you," or "I'm always the one who has to," or "Nobody appreciates how much I do around here." INFJs will list all the ways they've helped others, all the times they've put others first, and all the sacrifices they've made. They expect others to recognize and reward their selflessness. But here's the problem. Most of the time, nobody asked them to make those sacrifices. The INFJ chose to say yes to every request, chose to take on extra responsibilities, and chose to put others first. Then they feel bitter when others don't appreciate their unsolicited martyrdom. This weakness is impossible to hide because it colors everything the INFJ says and does. They'll make comments about how tired they are, how much they have to do, or how little help they get from others. They'll sigh heavily when asked to do things, making it clear that they're already overwhelmed but will do it anyway. They'll make jokes about being everyone's therapist or personal assistant, but there's always a bitter edge to the humor. The martyr complex is particularly toxic because it makes other people feel guilty for accepting the INFJ's help. Friends and family start to feel like they owe the INFJ something, even when they never asked for the help in the first place. This creates tension and resentment on both sides of the relationship. What's really tragic is that INFJs usually develop this complex because they don't know how else to feel valuable in relationships. They think that their worth comes from what they do for others rather than who they are as people. So they keep giving more and more, hoping that eventually others will see their value and love them for it. Why these weaknesses are so hard to hide. Now that we've covered all 8 weaknesses, let's talk about why INFJs can't seem to keep them hidden, no matter how hard they try. First, these weaknesses are all interconnected. The people-pleasing leads to emotional overwhelm, which leads to conflict avoidance, which reinforces the doormat behavior. It's like a chain reaction where one weakness triggers another, making the patterns more and more obvious to outside observers. Second, INFJs are naturally expressive people, even when they don't realize it. Their faces give away their emotions, their body language reveals their stress, and their speech patterns change when they're struggling. They might think they're hiding their weaknesses, but they're actually broadcasting them to anyone who's paying attention. Third, these weaknesses create behaviors that are impossible to miss. When someone is constantly apologizing, always saying yes, or regularly having emotional breakdowns, it's pretty obvious that something's going on. INFJs might not be able to see their own patterns, but everyone else can. The impact on relationships. These hidden weaknesses don't just affect the INFJs themselves, they have a massive impact on their relationships with others. Understanding this impact is crucial for both INFJs and the people who care about them. For romantic partners, dating an INFJ with these unaddressed weaknesses can be incredibly frustrating. The constant need for approval gets exhausting. The inability to make decisions drives partners crazy. The conflict avoidance means that problems never get resolved, they just get swept under the rug until they explode. Friends of INFJs often feel guilty about accepting help because they can sense the underlying resentment. They might start to pull away from the friendship because they're tired of the passive-aggressive comments or the martyr complex. Or they might become overly careful about what they ask for, which makes the friendship feel forced and unnatural. Family members often enable these weaknesses without realizing it. They'll make decisions for the INFJ to avoid the analysis paralysis. They'll protect the INFJ from conflict to spare their feelings. They'll praise the INFJ constantly to feed their need for approval. While these behaviors come from a place of love, they actually reinforce the weaknesses and prevent the INFJ from growing. How these weaknesses develop. Understanding where these weaknesses come from can help INFJs begin to address them. Most of these patterns develop early in life and get reinforced over time. Many INFJs grew up in households where their emotional needs weren't fully met. They learned that the way to get love and attention was to be helpful, to avoid causing problems, and to make others happy. These survival strategies worked in childhood but become limiting in adult relationships. INFJs are also highly sensitive to criticism and rejection, often due to early experiences of being misunderstood or judged. This sensitivity leads them to develop protective behaviors like people-pleasing and conflict avoidance. They'd rather sacrifice their own needs than risk being rejected. The perfectionism often comes from having high expectations placed on them as children, or from being praised primarily for their achievements rather than for who they are. They learn that their worth is tied to their performance, which creates the crushing pressure to be perfect all the time. The cost of hiding. When INFJs try to hide these weaknesses instead of addressing them, the cost is enormous. They end up living lives that aren't authentic to who they really are. They make decisions based on fear rather than values. They build relationships that are based on what they do rather than who they are. The stress of constantly managing these weaknesses takes a toll on their physical and mental health. They experience anxiety, depression, burnout, and physical symptoms like headaches and digestive issues. They're so busy taking care of everyone else that they neglect their own well-being. Perhaps most tragically, they miss out on the incredible gifts they have to offer the world. INFJs are naturally intuitive, creative, empathetic, and insightful. But when they're trapped by these weaknesses, they can't fully express these strengths. They're too busy managing their fears and insecurities to share their unique perspectives and talents. Recognition is the first step. The good news is that recognizing these weaknesses is the first step toward addressing them. INFJs who can acknowledge these patterns in themselves are already ahead of the game. Self-awareness is incredibly powerful, and it's the foundation for all personal growth. If you're an INFJ reading this and recognizing yourself in these descriptions, please don't feel ashamed or hopeless. These weaknesses don't define you, and they're not permanent. They're learned behaviors that can be unlearned with time, effort, and often professional support. The key is to approach these weaknesses with compassion for yourself. You developed these patterns for good reasons. They were your way of protecting yourself and trying to get your needs met. Now that you're aware of them, you can choose to develop healthier strategies. Conclusion. So there you have it, the 8 secret weaknesses that INFJs simply can't keep hidden. From the endless people-pleasing to the paralyzing perfectionism, from the emotional overwhelm to the doormat syndrome, these patterns are written all over INFJ behavior whether they realize it or not. But here's what I want you to remember. Being aware of these weaknesses doesn't make INFJs broken or defective. It makes them human. We all have areas where we struggle, patterns that hold us back, and behaviors that we wish we could change. The difference is that INFJs often carry these burdens more visibly than others. If you're an INFJ, I hope this video has helped you understand yourself better. These weaknesses don't have to control your life forever. With awareness, effort, and support, you can learn to manage them and develop healthier ways of relating to yourself and others. If you love an INFJ, I hope this has given you insight into what they're going through. Your understanding and patience can make a huge difference in their journey toward growth and healing. Don't try to fix them, but do let them know that you see their struggles and that you care about their well-being. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate these tendencies entirely. That's probably impossible and might not even be desirable. Instead, the goal is to develop awareness of them so they don't run your life. It's about finding balance, setting healthy boundaries, and learning to value yourself as much as you value others. INFJs have incredible gifts to offer the world. Their empathy, intuition, creativity, and depth of understanding are rare and precious. When they can move beyond these limiting patterns, they're capable of making profound contributions to the lives of others and to society as a whole. So whether you're an INFJ working on your own growth or someone who wants to better understand the INFJs in your life, remember that change is possible. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes courage, but it's absolutely worth it. Thanks for watching, and remember, understanding ourselves and each other is the first step toward creating more authentic, fulfilling relationships and lives. If this video helped you in any way, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments which of these weaknesses resonated most with you. And don't forget to subscribe for more content about personality types and personal growth. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.